Yeah, so I think this even might be a little different than what we described previously because he had a fifth metatarsal fracture, or we call it a Jones fracture. And so when we look at that, there are times where that fracture becomes just a little bit further than where I guess a true Jones would be, and that's more indicative of a stress fracture. So he may have been may have had a stress fracture there that he was just kind of playing through, had a little discomfort, and didn't realize it, and then actually went on and cracked the bone fully. And so there are times where normally we'll just put a screw in to stabilize it, which was what kind of the traditional way to fix it is, where you just put a screw down the middle of the bone to stabilize it. Where he actually had a plate and screws to stabilize it, so they made a little bit bigger incision and then put a plate on the outside of the bone where the tension side is, and that helps to prevent that bone from gapping because you're kind of preventing that tension force from gapping it open even further. So that's a little different than what most Jones fractures you would hear about. And so my understanding is they're kind of probably delaying him a little bit from coming back, and I think playoffs puts him around the 10-week mark.
Mm-hmm.
I bet that's the date circled on the calendar if I'm guessing.
So you kind of piqued my interest of the plate and screws. Do you
Yeah.
think that would be indicative of maybe how severe the actual injury was, or is that more? Could it be precautionary? Because I mean, Derrick Henry, the makeup of that man coming back and knowing what he's going and the pressure he's going to be putting on it for at least a week or
Yeah.
two. We don't know how much he's going to play or when he's going to return. Is that, or could that be how severe the injury is, or maybe a precautionary reason? What have you seen in your history?
Yeah, since it's a stress fracture, that means he loads that bone a lot more than most do. And so that might be a foot type issue. It might be just he's a big guy, 240, putting a lot of stress on the outside of that foot. And so that means that they're probably being more precautionary because the bone was a little bit thicker before it cracked, so it had already seen a decent amount of stress. So the fact they're putting the plate and screws in there is protective and less likely to be a problem. There's a little bit of a mechanical advantage of putting it on the outside of the bone in that situation.